Hello everyone! In my previous haul video of the Zig Clean Color Real Brush Pens, I showed you that I was still missing several colors of the pens that I was going to need for my Hyperdex. Now, what I did was I went to the YouTube channel of Jennifer Maguire, and she has a video about the storage of all her Zig pens, and she also has uploaded a card containing all the swatches of all the Zig colors, all 80 of them, and I downloaded those to my phone, and those are the swatches that I use to kind of figure out what colors I actually need to add to my collection of Zig pens for my Hyperdex. And after I have decided, I went to a different branch of National Bookstore with my son Chandler, who also was eager to test out the Zig, and I was able to pick out all the colors, all the rest of the colors that I needed. I have picked out the green, and I also picked wine red, and also the beige, which is actually not very light. And I also picked out pale pink, which is very light, but what I like about it is that you can clearly see that it's pink. Also the gray brown, I got that. And also the tea rose, which is also very light, but it's clearly different from the pale pink. And next I got the light pink, which is slightly darker than pale pink. And then I also got the pale green, which is very pale, but clearly different from the light green. And then I have also the purple and then the cobalt blue, which is a very nice color. And then the dull blue, which is also a very nice blue color, but I just don't like the name of it. And those were the pens that I picked out to complete all the Zig colors that I need for my Hyperdex color coding. And I was really, really happy that I found everything. And the digital swatches from Jennifer Maguire were really, really very helpful. And I don't know how I could have decided on the colors that I needed if not for the help of those swatches. And here I have put all of the colors of Zig in the pen roller that I'm currently using. As you can see, it can only hold 20 pens, but I have 21 in my color code, and I didn't want to give up everything because I have spent a lot of time figuring out the colors that I would be using since 2014. So taking out a color or adding a color would be too much of a major change, and I really, really like the colors that I have picked. So instead of giving up one color that cannot be included in the pen roller, I decided to use that as an opportunity to buy a new pen case, which always works out in favor of a stationery and pen lover like me. And the colors that I have decided to replace were the ones that have the dots on it, because I have observed that when the fields with the dots are, beside each other, they kind of look cluttered. I can still understand them very, very clearly, which is the purpose of it. But because I'm moving to the Zig with a very beautiful watercolor effect, the wash effect, the uneven wash effect, I didn't want to cover them at all with the white dots. So I have decided to find a way to give up the dots completely. For the lavender and white dots, I was able to find a lavender that would work, and for the dark blue and white dots, I decided to give that up completely because I don't swim laps anymore, but I still have the space and I left it blank. And as for the CL studying, I replaced that with a pale pink, and the organizing of CL notes, I replaced that with the tea rose, which is different from the pale pink that I just pointed to. All other colors were, well, more or less the same. And I have also decided to put labels on the top of the caps of the Zig pens. I also got this idea from Jennifer Maguire, and I will punch out the labels with this single hole punch with a 6 millimeter diameter. And the reason why I'm doing this is that the cap of the Zig pens, like that one in the video, have no labels on them. And with the new pencil case that I have purchased, which I will review in a separate video, the pens are stored upright vertically with a nib end up, which is one of the ways in which you can store them according to the manufacturer of Zig. And so what I did was I printed out the color numbers onto a piece of Tomo River paper, and I actually printed out 3 sets of the numbers so that in case I make a mistake, I will have another set to work with. And I'm going to be using the middle set because the set on top has that line running down the center. My printer is really shot to pieces. I really should buy a new one. And then I simply scribbled a swatch of each color onto the corresponding number that I have printed out, and I'm doing this on Tomo River paper because I want to see on the labels exactly how the ink will look on my planner pages, which use Tomo River paper. So now let me speed up this video so you won't have to wait too long for me to finish. Perhaps one of the tips that I can share with you guys if you are planning to be doing this for your own labels is to wait for the ink from the zig pens to be completely dry on the paper before starting to hole punch everything, because there is a lot of water in the pens and they can saturate the paper so much. So if you hole punch the labels out before the ink is completely dry, it can mess up the whole punch. So that's just a little tip for you guys. And I am using this single hole punch like I have showed before. It has a 6 millimeter diameter, and that blue hole punch actually has a cover for the back, but I took it out so that I can see very clearly the numbers that I'm punching out so that I won't accidentally cut some portions off. When I started hole punching the labels from the Tomo River paper, I was actually afraid that maybe it won't hole punch properly because the paper was so thin, and I use for my planner pages the pre-cut, pre-hole punch Tomo River paper that I buy from Reimei Da Vinci in Japan via the Etsy store of Kawaii, Tokyo. But surprisingly, it was pretty easy to hole punch the paper and nothing tore. And what I have used to affix the punched out labels to the top of the zig caps was that purple glue stick from Bic. It lays down purple, but it dries clear with a matte finish. Now, I am not sure if that is actually the correct glue to use. Jennifer Maguire used glossy accents on hers, and she also laid down a layer of glossy accents on top of the layers to seal them off or protect them. And I didn't have glossy accents. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be happy with this kind of labeling when I started, but for the most part, it has worked. None of the labels have fallen off, and both the number and the colors of each pen is visible on all of the labels. And I will show you later the only color in which the number is not visible. But for now, for the purposes of this video and for my own personal purposes for using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush Pens, this method of labeling works. And I think by now you already get the picture. You already know what I'm doing. So I'm gonna cut this video off to the next step that I have done. And here I already have all the labels affixed to the caps of the Zig pens. And the only label in which the number cannot be clearly seen is the one for blue. It should be 030. But the blue is very, very dark, so it has almost covered up the number, but that's okay. I already know what that color is. And now whenever I try to use the pens for my Hyperdex, I can very clearly see what colors I need, and I pick the pen out exactly. I don't have to dig for everything else in the pen case just to see which colors I am digging out. It has made everything so much more convenient for me to use, and shading in my Hyperdex has been back to the fast, instinctive way that I have always used it. I have used this system since 2014, like I have mentioned, and I want it to be very, very fast. And having those labels at the top of the caps make things very, very fast. And now the next step would be to make a new color key page for the new colors. Um, as you can see, I have a bunch of scrap papers down there in which I scribbled swatches of the pens in order to decide what colors are the perfect match for my existing color key. But of course, I didn't make any major changes to my color key. And in fact, I have an old color key that I printed out months ago and which I haven't colored in yet. And I didn't want to waste that paper because the categories did not change and the colors did not change. It's just that the name of the colors have changed. So what I did was I took a scrap piece of Tomo River paper and printed out the names of the actual zig colors that I'm going to be using, and then I cut it down to size, and then I am just going to paste it over the existing color key page. And I'm going to be using that same purple glue stick, and as you can see from the back of that scrap paper, it's really just scrap paper. I do this a lot. Whenever I make mistakes in my planner pages, I just cut out a scrap piece of Tomo River paper and then put glue at the back of it and then paste it over the mistake so that I can write over that. My planner pages are very small, they're personal sized, so I didn't want to waste any space. And that is also the method that I am using for my updated Hyperdex color key. After I covered the area with the new names of the zig colors, then I am all set. And of course, the next step would be to color in all of those areas with the new zig pens that I have decided on. As you can see, most of the colors are pretty much the same, like almost all of it, except for two boxes that I have left without a color because those pertain to activities that I hardly ever do. I have not done them in almost a year, so I wasn't sure what if I were to assign them a color, but I still left the categories there anyway. And I really, really like how the new color key looks. Let me just show you a close-up of it. I really love the watercolor effect. It's like very uneven, and you can only get that from watercolors. And like I have mentioned in a previous video, I'm not sure, this is also something that I appreciate with fountain pens because you get that shading that you don't get from felt markers. And as for the actual Hyperdex that has the zig markers on them, it looks more artsy in a way. I don't know how to say it, but I really like how it has that watercolor look that I never got to achieve with the Staedtler fine liners. And I really, really like it. I don't decorate my pages, but with this, it looks like my pages are already decorated and it looks very, very pretty. And I really like looking at them. And let me show you the Hyperdex for another day, the one that has light violet on it. Um, I really like that even if the color is very light, it still shows the shading. And the Hyperdex is very tiny, and I wasn't aware that I was already coloring outside of the lines, but it still looks pretty anyway. And that's really an effect that you get from watercolors. And finally, the last step was to put a tip in to the left side of my planner spread to contain the new color names and color numbers of the colors that I'm using for my Hyperdex color key, because the left page of my planner is used for tracking and the Hyperdex is for tracking. I thought it best to append the tip in to the left side of the spread, because the right side is for planning and I already have the weekly task tipped in there already. So the left side of the spread would be the perfect place to put the tipped in Hyperdex color key. And the reason for this is so that I can start getting familiarized with the numbers of the zig markers. And it's just something that I'm trying out. To make the tip in, I took an ordinary ivory colored paper. This is not Tomo River paper. I just took a blank piece of it and then measured it to the correct size, and then I cut it down and I just added to the measurement an extra a few inches in order to hold that Hyperdex color key that I have already cut out. That color key is printed on Tomo River paper, by the way, because like I said, I wanted to see exactly how the Zig ink would act on Tomo River paper, and hence I would be able to see how they would act on my Hyperdex circles. And so after I have checked that that would be the correct size for the tip in, I took the purple glue again and slathered it all over the back of that Hyperdex color key on Tomo River paper, and then pressed it down onto the flap that folds out. And putting that back into my planner, I can see that it is perfect for what I needed to do. And then, of course, an enjoyable part of the process would be me coloring in all of those boxes for the tipped in Hyperdex color key. And that is actually it. That is my video for you guys today. This was a very enjoyable experience for me, even when I was agonizing over the Jennifer Maguire swatches and figuring out if pale pink would be a good color, if tea rose would be easily distinguished from pale pink. It was sort of agonizing, which if you're a stationery lover and a pen lover, you will understand. But all in all, even that agonizing part was quite enjoyable. And well, that is the end of this video. I hope you were able to get a few tips and I hope you truly enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye!